So, good afternoon, everyone. It is wonderful to see so many of you take your time out again to join us. Welcome to CiC's fourth session in our series for the physical health webinars. For those that haven't attended before, my name is Jake and I am the physical wellbeing stream lead here at CiC. And we are thrilled to continue this series with a live demonstration on stability exercises. Again, for those that haven't joined before, our host for these sessions is Grant Yule, with over 23 years of experience in rehabilitation, athletic performance, and also prehabilitation. The aim of these sessions is to be interactive as possible, so we do invite you to use the chat function to introduce yourselves, drop comments and posts throughout the webinar. We have set a good amount of time aside towards the end of the session as well. If you do have any questions for Grant, he will be able to get through as many of them as he possibly can. I would also like to add this session is being recorded, so if you would like to watch it back yourself, or you do have any colleagues that were unable to attend to watch the webinar, please just let them know and we can pass them details on. And now, without further ado, I will hand you over to Grant to get this session started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back, or if this is your first time, I'll introduce myself quickly. I'm Grant, as Jake says, so I've been coaching for a very, very long time, 23 years now, which is frightening. Really got into doing rehabilitation, but with the webinars, I really wanted to focus on more of an educational platform for people. I always am a strong believer if I can build knowledge about what exercise is, how to do it, and remove kind of any barriers of fear, you're much more likely to either get started or change how you're training. Exercise should be normalized. That's my kind of saying. I want everybody, exercise shouldn't be treated as something to be confusing or scary. It's something that we all have to do for our own benefits. The last webinar we did was on mobility. So essentially looking at how to increase the range of motion in our joints and muscles. So we went through a live demonstration last time, and today we're going to look at stability. So stability is a really, really, really important part of our daily lives when we're not actually in work and when we're moving about. But it's something also that can be crossed over to what we do in our exercise and our sport. What is stability? Stability is balance overall. Okay. Most exercises or sport or daily activities that we do is always going to be bilateral for the most part. So bilateral meaning that we're using both sides. What we end up doing is building imbalances from our sides. We've all generally got a stronger side. So an easy example would be football. Most people are very one-footed and they use the other leg just to stand on. Now, over the short term, that's not a problem. But when we start building imbalances, we put ourselves at a greater injury risk. So we want to actually make sure we're doing exercises to build as much equality in our bodies as possible. So first thing is it can massively improve your sporting performance. Train a lot of athletes doing a lot of balance work, standing on one foot, which we're going to do in a wee second. What's the actual stability point is we look at all the points of contact. So from foot, ankle, knee, hip, your core's holding everything together. And then from the top end, wrist, elbow, shoulder, scapula, and your back. So all these points of contact, they need to work together to make sure we're in our strongest position possible. As we get older, naturally tend to happen is our neuromuscular facilitation starts to decrease, so our balance starts becoming poorer. So that's why you'll see a lot of elderly folk have falls, is that they just don't have the body awareness or what you call the proprioception to maintain in a balanced position. So stability training, there's a visible and non-visible factor that we'll look at. So we're going to work together. You're going to hopefully follow along with what I'm going to do today. You can see I'm in my kitchen, and I purposely have done that because I'm a firm believer you do not need a lot of space to do this, and I want to actually prove that and show you that you can just do this from home. It's not complicated. You're not going to be sweaty. You're not going to be out of breath doing this. We can make this as easy or as difficult as you need for you to find the benefit from it. So the physical factors, they're going to be really the coaching that I'm going to give you to the posture that I want you to set while you follow along. The non-visible factor is the neuromuscular side. So our bodies are incredible at adaptation. Our brain will send signals through our spine into our muscles, and that will proprioception give us the ability to control our body movement. When you do stability exercises, you're going to find maybe the first set, your balance isn't great. And then by the time you do your second and your third set, it's incredible how quickly your body will adapt and you'll feel so much more balanced and stable doing the exercise. So there is this hidden factor is your body and your brain's constantly going through adaptation. The prime example is one of my clients, Adam, who unfortunately lost his leg. He had a high hip amputation at age 30. Which was horrific, obviously, for him, but he's an incredible human being. And I started training him after the amputation. So he's got no choice but to be on one leg. And, you know, initially he was very obviously wobbly. He was struggling. He was on his crutches all the time. To this day, he's in the gym with me every week, deadlifting on one leg, 70 kilograms. He's incredible. He can do single leg squats. It's just unbelievable what he can do. Because he has to, he's got no choice. And a lot of times people only start exercising when they're put into a situation where they have no choice, whether it's a health concern or an injury, that they have to actually then start the training. I'm trying to educate you and actually get you to become just a little bit more body aware of what you're doing when you're exercising, and how simple it is. It's really not difficult. And we can make this as difficult as you need. As I said, there's so many different levels. It's just finding the level that's suitable for you to do. So stability training, great for increasing sporting performance, but more importantly, really, really important for injury prevention. Incredible for actually improving the tendon and ligament strength of your body. So strength training isn't just muscular. We look at bone density, the ligaments and the tendons, and all the kind of connective tissue that we have. We can increase the strength of those, and that's how we're going to be in a really strong position. So let's get going. We're going to be standing for the first part. You are going to have, I'm going to give you the option, you can either have a wall, something that you can help you. A chair is absolutely fine, just to actually get the balance initially. I'm just going to adjust my camera here so you can get the best picture possible. So you're going to initially going to have to actually concentrate on my feet. So when we're training, the first thing I always look at somebody, if you walked into the gym, is I look at their feet and what they do with their feet. So your foot's obviously first point of contact when you move, whether you're walking or running or jumping, everything is stemmed to what you do with your foot. Now, we can't really control what our natural foot position is unless we've maybe got an insole that holds our foot in position. Our feet and our ankles, of course, are designed to move, to rotate, to elevate, to press down. But when you'll find a lot of people tend to have a lot of kind of flattened arches of their foot. So your flattening of your arch can be genetic, but it can also just be from getting older, wearing poor footwear. Equally, you see folk with high arches, and both aren't ideal. But what we look at is strengthening the foot to start with. When you do stability exercise, I'm going to get you to really focus on what your foot is doing first, because your foot is what's going to keep you grounded and rooted to the floor, but it's also going to allow you to increase the control over the rest of your body. When we start, I want you to really, you're not going to see my head here because I'm actually going to let you see what my feet are doing. I've kept my socks on. And I ideally tell you just to take your shoes off right now. And I want you just to stand relaxed in this position. So if I'm in a relaxed position, I can rotate and turn my knees in. Okay, so if I'm playing tennis or football or hockey, I need to be able to rotate and turn, and that's absolutely fine. The problem is if you do not have the strength built in those muscles, in the tendon and ligaments, over time, that's how you're going to have injury. So I tore my meniscus on my left knee 6 years ago. And my meniscus purely was from, I think at that time was about 20 years of competitive skiing, then powerlifting, that in football, that my physio basically said, you've basically the equivalent of you've been going over speed bumps your entire life, and finally the springs have gone. Now, I barely got a meniscus in my left knee, but incredibly, I never had surgery. What I did do was just put my own practice in terms of doing my own rehabilitation, which was mobility, stability, and strength. And now I've got full function in my left knee. So when we do stability, we're going to start with the most simple thing possible. Your foot pressure, I'm going to get you to apply. You're going to start on 2 feet here, just slightly wider than hip width apart. Now, you can look at your own feet and just see how they stand. Some folk will find that their knees are collapsing in here. Some folk will have higher arches, and you'll find that their feet are naturally pointed out the way. What you're going to do whenever we do any exercise is make sure that our foot pressure is always central. So it doesn't matter what exercise you do, we never want the weight in our toes or our heels, because every action has a reaction, and that is going to cause you to lose balance. So we actually want to create strength through the foot. We can improve if you have got flattened arches, this will actually strengthen your foot, is making sure the weight distribution is through your big toe, your pinky, and your heel equally. The easiest way I always describe this is imagine if you're standing on a rug, a loose rug, and you're pushing tension into the rug. So my big toe, my pinky, and my heel are now gripping into the floor, right? That movement alone, you should actually almost feel your glutes get engaged straight away. So if I push the floor apart, I'm going to feel tension through, and it should feel like you're stuck to the floor. That means now my knee is going to be in line with my big toe. My glutes are going to be engaged, so my hips are engaged, and that's going to mean that I'm going to be in a much better position. The easiest way to start with stability is to look at range of motion. So I want you to have a chair or something or a wall, and I want you just to test standing on one foot with that foot pressure. So if we do it together, push the floor apart, find something to support if you need it, and all I want you to do is bring and lift your foot off the floor and bring your knee up, and just hold that position for me. Okay, we're just going to hold 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, try the other side for me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, as simple that is, I bet everyone that just did that probably felt their ankle moving. Now, what you can imagine, there'll be different degrees of that. We are going to take you through a different range of motion, and our body's going to go through this automatic, our brains are going to go through this automatic process of learning how to control our balance. Your job is to focus on what your foot pressure is doing, and we're going to look at how do we keep our core engaged. At the end of the day, your core is what holds everything together. Your core is 3-dimensional, so it's not just your abdominals, they are really your face value muscles here. This is the trunk of the tree, if you imagine that. Your arms and legs are the branches. So the trunk is where we get it really, keep us rooted and grounded to the floor, but our core is also going to allow us to produce power. So we look at our pelvis, and we're just going to think about is, rather than holding air in our chest like you do in yoga, is you're going to allow the air to travel down into your belly button. And if you press the sides, you should feel engagement. That's your obliques. That will mean that you've got complete control and power through your core. So the first exercise that we're going to do, from holding that one position of bringing our foot off the floor, keeping the pressure through your big toe, is I'm going to touch my heel down. So the heel is going to go forward. I'm going to turn side on so you can see this. I'm going to just look towards the floor. I'm going to get that full foot pressure to your big toe, pinky, and heel. And I'm going to reach and touch my heel onto the floor lightly and then stand back up. Okay, show you again. Foot off the floor, touch the heel down, stand back up. Okay, touch the heel down, stand back up. Keep that core engaged. Now, what we do to improve our overall stability is increasing the range of motion that we're reaching out. So I'm going to get everyone to try again to touch their heel out and bring it back 10 times and just find the range of motion that's suitable to you individually. That's where it's challenging, right? But you're keeping control. That's the most important thing. So we stabilize, stand on that one foot, and I'm going to reach and touch the heel lightly onto the floor, stand back up, keep this foot off the floor. Touch and up. Touch, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, keep pressing through that big toe, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very simple. Other side. Now, immediately, you probably feel tension going through your ankle, but also your back side here, because the main movers of the lower body are working really hard for us now, okay? So now if we switch our foot, and then we're going to tap down the other time. So I'm going to go my right foot here, push your hips back slightly, touch that heel, come back up. If you can, keep the foot off the floor when you bring it back into your midline of your body. It's 5, 6, 7, and 8. Increase that range of motion. And 9, and 10. Now that incredibly simple exercise is really, really important. It will improve tendon, ligament strength in the knee, in your ankles, and in your hip. The progression is very simple. So if you suffer from knee pain or ankle pain or hip pain, that's a perfect, such a simple exercise. And what your goal is just to increase the range of motion that you're touching your foot down onto, okay? Now, how do we make this harder or change the stimulus of it? Is, remember last time we were talking about mobility, is that your hip is multifaceted. It's designed to move in different directions, okay? We're very linear as humans, and that ends up meaning that our imbalances grow because we're not moving our body in different directions. So the next part of this is we're going to go around the world. The exercise is a round the world lunge. It's very simple. So now I'm going to do same exercise. I'm going to go forward. My hips are going to push back. I touch the heel. I come up. Now, the second one, I'm going out to the side. I'm going to touch my toe out to the side and drop back into the middle. And then I'm going to go back. My hands and chest go forward, touch the heel, touch my toe down, back to the front. That's one rep. So it's heel, touch, toe, touch, and then behind with your toe again, touch. Good. And again, touch the heel, touch the toe, touch the toe. Let your upper body counterbalance. So if I reach out to the side, my body's going the opposite direction. Good. Let's try that other side for me. Touch your heel, touch your toe, touch your toe behind you. Now, the really nice test that we're going to do once we've done a few rounds of this is I'm going to get you just to stand on one foot again. And as I said, while you're doing this, your brain is going through a learning phase. It's understanding that you can't use both legs to balance. So it starts becoming a lot more stable. When we're more stable through our joints, we're putting our bodies in the strongest position possible. So the main muscle groups are engaged and working for us. When we're not doing it now, when you do this in your training, you obviously, your day-to-day life, you're not going to be able to think about your foot pressure and how to hold your core properly. The benefits are by doing the stability exercises, as simple as that is, the more you do that, the more that you're going to automatically take into your normal life. Okay, because your brain is learning, is going through adaptation. It's comfortable now balancing on one foot and one side. So this is the real benefits. I don't do more than, I guess, 5 minutes of this 3-4 times a week. I tend to do this in preparation before exercising, and I'll do it in this kitchen. It's easy for me just to go, right, okay, I'm going out, say, for a run. I can now actually go through my range of motion. We're going to go again here, get that range of motion. Now this time, try and increase. I'm going to really reach, touch. Reach out to the side as far as you can. And then going behind you, touch, through. There you go. Again, you've got a wall or a table or a chair, just something you can use. But the range of motion is dependent on you and what you feel comfortable with. It doesn't matter if you're just a couple of inches out in front. That's absolutely fine to start on. But each round and each day that you do this, you can increase the range of motion. And before you know it, you're now increasing your overall strength. A lot of Pilates and yoga is centered around not muscular strength necessarily. It's all the connective tissues that we have, trying to increase our awareness internally to allow us to stay balanced. And this is so applicable to normal everyday life. If you're doing anything outside, whether it's gardening or you're playing with the kids or whatnot, is our bodies, the more that they have stability and equality, we're going to be in a much safer position for us. There's amazing research with people who suffer from MS on the benefits of stability training, as they obviously are losing more and more function of their neuromuscular facilitation. Then by increasing mindfully, doing more stability and strength work, they have incredible stories that you'll see on combating against chronic diseases. Now, that's one drill I got you to do. We've had a little rest there. I'm going to stand back up now. Now, let's just go back to the start. Think about that full foot pressure again for me. I want you just to bring your foot off the floor and bring your knee up to your chest and just relax your breathing. Now, you should hopefully feel automatically you're a lot more stable on that foot. You're not feeling out of balance. You've got that control. So that, for me, straight away, I feel so much more stable. I had to do this the hard way because I was so right dominant growing up. It was my left knee that went, and because I was forcing it to do the things that my right side was capable of, but my left side wasn't strong enough. So that's why the weakness came from. So that's why we want to build that. It's hard. I can already feel just from doing a few rounds of that, my legs feel engaged. You're getting all the benefits straight off the bat from that. You don't need to do more than 5 minutes a few times a week. You can do this in your kitchen. The next part we're going to look at from your lower body is looking at our upper body and what happens there. So with stabilization, I always say, first thing I always talk about with the upper body is our shoulders. They are the whinging child of the family. They constantly complain and they want all the attention. They try and get involved in everything that you do. So whenever you think about it, most people tend to have a slightly kind of rounded shoulder posture. Last time when we did the mobility, we were looking at increasing that range of motion through the joint itself. But equally, what happens is your shoulders got your rotator cuffs, and they end up becoming under a lot of constraint. When a muscle's under constant constraint, it shortens to a point that it can pinch. And that's why you'll see a lot of folk with shoulder impingements, that they'll feel pain coming through here, because rather than the arm sitting flush within the socket itself, it's been pulled out of the socket slightly. So the muscle, the rotator cuff, which is there to stop dislocation from happening, is now pinching because it's contracted. It's not ever getting a chance to go into a relaxed state. So they're getting normal length rather than being here. It's constantly there. So as soon as I put my shoulders under any sort of force, it's going to pinch even more. Okay, and that's where your pain comes from. So same as your feet, we look at our hands, and our hands are really going to dictate what we have or what we do with our shoulder positioning here. Okay, now I'm just going to turn the camera down here, so I'm going to get you to kind of join me on the floor. I'm going to do a little bit of mat work. So I'm just going to bring my mat out here. Again, if you've got something soft to kind of lie on, that's ideal. So I'm going to just show you the differential of when we do or we look at increasing the range of motion within our upper body. We can then work on the stabilization of the joint itself. Shoulders, again, complicated joint, multifaceted, designed to rotate and turn. And we tend to do this. That's the only motion that we tend to do. So our hands and our shoulders, our hands are going to dictate what happens to the shoulder. Okay, so if I turn, if you look at my hands here, I'm just going to turn my hand away from me and pull the shoulder back into the socket. So I'm going to retract the shoulder and give myself short arms. Okay, you can see from this side here, rather than reaching and pulling, I'm going to turn the hand out. So I'm depressing the shoulder down. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to pull and retract the shoulder back. The tension I should feel is in the upper back. The biggest muscle group in your upper body is your lats. And we want to use them much more than we use our shoulders. So that's me reaching out, going to turn the hands and squeeze those shoulders back into position. We want to gain stability through our scapula. Okay, so most people, if you have poor mobility through your upper body, it will be a reduced range of motion that's happening within the scapula. Okay, so the shoulder blades. We should see this motion. If you look behind someone, you'll see the shoulders rotating. If we have a forward rounded shoulder position, there's not going to be as big range of motion. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to use both hands here and see if we can get our established position. So, and I'm just going to turn this down a little bit just so you can see the position that I'm in here. Perfect. Okay, so if I'm in an all fours position, we are going to be in a position here. If I relax, I'm going to keep my elbow locked out here. I'm going to allow my head to drop towards the floor. Now, from this position, I can squeeze my shoulder blades together. If I push the floor apart and round my upper back, you'll get a nice stretch coming in through your upper back there. That's you out of position. This is an unstable position to do any lifting or moving. That's where your shoulders are going to be disengaged. Now my hands, now they're on the floor, I'm going to angle the fingers out slightly. Wrist is in line with elbow, which is in line with shoulder. Now all I'm going to get you to do initially is pull your shoulders back and down so they're away from your ears. So just hold that position. Great. So from here, initially, all I'm going to get you to do is you're going to go into a counterbalance. So I'm going to take my left hand off the mat and I'm going to take my right knee off the mat. So it'll be my right hand supporting me and my left knee. So I'm going to lift and bring them off and hold that position. Now again, I've got my knee to support me here. Now all I'm looking for is the same idea as to when we worked with the lower body. I'm looking for that control, and then I'll show you the complicated bit out. But initially, just hold that position. Think about your core here, engaging air going into your stomach and maintaining position. Now, all I'm going to do here is change, put my left foot down, and put my left shoulder and hand down and tuck that shoulder away from me. And then I'm going to bring the opposite side off, right? So we're going to have that control, right hand off, left knee off. In alignment, wrist, elbow, shoulder, maintain position. Hold that position. So this is your easy version 1. Version 2 is obviously you can bring your knees off the floor. We can go into a press up position. So I can flatten out here and go from this position. So once I'm in this position, same idea, can bring that off, control, touch down, touch down. Today I want everyone just to do it from the all fours position. The exercise we're going to do is called a Superman, and this is going to add movement while holding our position with one arm and the one opposite knee. So for the Superman positioning, right hand is in contact with the floor, left knee is in contact with the floor. I'm going to take my opposite side, I'm going to take my left arm on the elbow, I'm going to reach the knee in the middle, and I'm going to extend and reach and hold that position. Bring it back in, elbow touches knee, extend. And my goal here is to fully extend the leg and keep that arm in line with your ear. Touch, reach, extend, through. Hold position. Little pause each time. What you're teaching your body here and your scapula is how to increase the stability through ligaments, tendons, and muscles through that positioning. Let's try the opposite side. So, left hand in contact, right knee in contact, left knee off, right arm off. Touch, reach, extend, hold, bring it into your midline, touch, reach, extend, and hold. Each time we do that, pause, work on getting that range of motion, and we want a straight line from foot to arm. Good, nice, perfect. Hold that position and relax. So, Supermans are a fantastic exercise to treat or teach the upper body how to maintain position. The other one we look at is really commonly used, but I'll look at the intricacies of it, is going to our side plank positioning. So a lot of folk, when they do side plank, we can just start with our knees on the floor here. As they're not engaging correctly here, so they end up holding all their weight through the shoulder and their elbow, and that means you're only getting a really, really sore shoulders. Whereas we want to make sure, actually, we set the elbow positioning by having the hand flat on the floor, retracting the shoulder back. So I've got a straight line from shoulder to elbow, and I'm actively pulling down. Now, really simply to start, don't worry about straightening your legs. We'll keep this as a nice, easy variation. All I want you to do is lift your hips off the floor to that position there. You can have your opposite hand down if you're struggling to come up off the floor, but push through and hold the hips off the floor and maintain that position. So we're just going to hold that. 3, 2, 1, touch those hips back down. And let's try the opposite side. We should see a differential between them. Before I will start, I will say, set your posture before you go. Set your shoulder back and down, knees together, push through the floor if you need, bring your hips off, hold that position. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, every time we do this, we're teaching the body all the time how to control, how to stabilize. It's like the Matrix, essentially. Your brain is so clever at learning movement patterns. Now we add the extra difficulty. So like we did with the lower body of touching the heel out, which we then obviously changed to going around the world, changing in different directions. With the upper body, we're going to do similar. But we're going to go into that side plank positioning. And now I'm going to just bring my hips off. As this top hand's going to reach under, I'm going to thread it under my body here, and I'm just going to reach and extend back round. Reach under the body, increase that range of motion, point towards the ceiling, and feed through it each time. If you feel more confident, you can even just keep your bum down on the floor, but keep the pressure through your elbow, as long as your shoulder's in that right position, and feed and reach through each time. Let's try the other side. Coming off, you can keep your backside on the floor. You can come off. We can reach under the body, set, eyes follow your hand round towards the ceiling, reach under, rotate through. So we've got our Superman positioning here. Got our side plank positioning. Rotate through. 2 phenomenal exercises to help you improve the stability of your shoulder, but also will massively help keep you injury free as long as you're doing this along with your mobility that we did last time. It's a great recipe. Now, the last part before we go into the Q&A is looking at our core, the glue that holds everything together. We need pelvic control, core stabilization. As I said, this is your foundation. Okay, this is what holds us together. If we can't have the control through our core, then we're going to be in big trouble. That's how we're going to get back pain massively. I am not a massive fan of doing sit-ups. You see that quite frequently in gyms as you go to a circuit class and they're getting you to go in a pretty uncontrolled manner, but you're putting your spine through flexion and extension. So we're going like this through our lower back constantly. And if you've already got imbalances, it generally means once you've done lots of sit-ups, you end up with a pretty sore lower back. All my kind of core movements that I look at when I'm isolating the core, because I'm still training my core when I was doing the stability exercise, I'm having to contract, is on a kind of very slow and controlled movement basis. So if I lie back here, bring my feet up, first thing I'm going to do is just, I want to make sure that my lower back is in contact with the floor. Well, how do you do that? You're going to take a big breath in and I'll allow that air travel down into my stomach so I can exhale a little bit through my nose. You should be able to press the sides of your body here and feel the engagement. And just hold that position initially and just think about the air trapped down in your belly button. While we're doing this, what we've done is we've put our pelvis into a neutral position. So we should feel full lower back contact. And that means we're creating contraction through our entire core 3-dimensionally, not just through the abdominal wall. So the exercise that we're going to look at, so one of my favourites is called dead bugs. Strange name, I know, but you'll see why it's called that in a second. Dead bugs are great because they are they look at the sling muscle, so the rotational muscles. The obliques are going to be working hard here for us as well as the upper and lower abdominals. If there's certainly any females that have given birth, whether it was through C-section or whether it's just through normal birth procedures, tend to have a lot of scar tissue that can build up, or they struggle to get the contraction right. So this is one of the key exercises to do, especially for female, but this is perfect for everyone. And we're going to start very simple. I'm going to set that core breath down into the stomach and bring my knees up to my chest and just maintain this position here. Now, all I'm going to get you to do to start off is have your hands out in front of you. So arms are out in front, and all I'm going to do is start with the legs. I'm going to extend slowly out as far as I can. I want to get that full extension out. The goal here is to get the leg extended out while maintaining lower back contact. Squeeze the knee back in and then change your sides. Reach, 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 reach. Now, you also might struggle if you've got slightly longer legs. So if you feel you can only get to about here before your lower back's coming off, that's fine. Most importantly is we want to keep that contraction through your core. The stronger you get, the bigger range of motion that you're going to be able to have and extend those legs out. So dead bugs, all we're going to do now to get the upper abdominals engaged, my hands are going to move in a different direction as my feet. So I'm going to extend, I'm just going to do the one side here. The left leg's going to go out while the right hand reaches back. Okay, now when it comes in, I'm going to squeeze my core as tight as I can. Switch your sides, reach, reach, reach. Right leg, left arm meets back in the middle. And we're just going to keep nice and controlled, same tempo as I'm doing. I always like adding just a little bit of a pause in each of the directions that I'm going in. Just look at that slight pause, squeeze your core, bring it back in. Now in this position here, the upper abdominals are engaged, lower abdominals are engaged, the obliques are engaged and contracting hard through it each time. Your goal here when you do that exercise is just to try and get that increased range of motion. As long as you're feeling the effort through it, we're going to create great stability through your pelvis, through your diaphragm, through your rectus abdominis, transverse abdominis, through your obliques, through your erector spinae, through your lower back. Everything's going to be maximally stronger. Stronger your core is, the more stable that you're going to be doing exercises or any daily activity. So I hope that gave you some ideas and knowledge of what stability is, why it's important. I'm going to hand this back to Jake, and hopefully he's got some good questions for me to answer from everyone in the group chat.
Coming back now. Can you hear me all right, Grant?
I've got you.
Excellent. So thank you, first of all, Grant, for such an insightful session. Information you shared on the different types of exercises is truly valuable and applicable to all that attended today. What we'd now like to do, as Grant has just mentioned, is invite you all to ask any questions you might have for himself. Please feel free to type any questions you've got in the chat box. And like I said at the start, we'll go through as many as we can one by one. We encourage you to ask anything that has been on your mind, whether it's about your own fitness journey, overcoming any specific challenges, optimizing your current routine. Grant would love to hear from you. And to kick us off then, Grant, there's been a really important question in the chat. It was asked when you were doing the mobility for the lower body. I have arthritis in my left knee, waiting a replacement knee. Is there any limitation on what I should be doing, or should I just listen to my knee?
Is it, do you mean this, sorry, pre or post-op? Just pre-op?
Pre-op, yeah.
Pre-op. Yeah, I mean, actually, anyone with arthritis, the first thing they should be doing is resistance training, mobility. Now, obviously, I know it's completely dependent on how much pain that you're suffering from, but there's a lot of exercises that you can do. There's a piece of equipment called a TRX. It's a kind of suspension system. What that's fantastic for is to train a lot of folk with arthritis, is it allows you to increase the range of motion without having to put your full body weight through that joint itself. So when you've got arthritis, for instance, what you really don't want to be looking at is obviously loading the, say, your knee, for instance, if it's hurting a lot, because that's just going to increase the pain levels. Can you train with discomfort? Yes. What we don't want to be doing is then being in proper pain when you're doing the exercise. That's a big no-no. I would certainly look at the mobility side. It's phenomenal to start with arthritis, because especially within the knee joint, your body, again, is very intelligent. The surrounding muscle groups tighten up, they contract to protect. So what you'd probably find with your knee right now is that your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, they're already going to be contracted and tight. So the first thing I would actually get you to probably look at doing is getting some sports massage on around the actual joint of the knee as well, because then when the muscles aren't so over contracted, it will relax the body, so it will decrease the amount of pain that you've got. And once you've if we can lessen the pain, then we can increase the amount of exercises that we're doing. The stability and the mobility stuff is phenomenal for anyone with arthritis.
That's great. Thank you, Grant. Then we have an additional question. Is there best exercises to do to help with an aching lower back?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing when I look at lower back pain, I mean, there's always, I think the next webinar is going to be on injury. Injury prevention, and we'll look at injury rehabilitation as well. And the first thing I'd always ask somebody with lower back pain is this an impact injury, or is it just a chronic pain that happened from you've just been living with consistently? So lower back, first thing I would say, if it's just normal, if you've had an impact injury or you've been in a car crash or something like that, I'd certainly always say go to a physio, go to a doctor first and let them have a check, just in case there's any major damage going on. If it's just like a chronic back pain that you have, the first thing I'll always look at is the pelvis and what's happening with the pelvis. So that anyone that's seated for long periods of time, so presumably if you're working behind a desk, the hip flexors will shorten. So the hip flexors, I'm going to stand up again, hip flexors are just the muscle group. If you find your hip bone and then you just draw a couple of inches across, The deep muscle in here is the hip flexor. Now, when that's under a contracted state, i.e. sitting for long periods of time, what you're going to find is that it will pull the pelvis out of position, which means that when you alter the positioning of the pelvis, it's going to put the strain onto the lower back. That's going to then shorten the distance between the vertebrae, so the lower back becomes contracted. So the first thing I would do is look up hip flexor mobility exercises and hip flexor strengthening exercises. You can strengthen and lengthen the hip flexor muscle itself. 9 times out of 10, it will reduce the back pain straight off the bat. If it's sciatica, for instance, then it's going to be more glute focused. It's looking at increasing the mobility of through the piriformis and the glute minimus. So that would be the 2 areas that I would target in on. But strengthening your core is phenomenal for reducing back pain. Okay.
That's great, Grant. And just to ensure I've answered the follow-up question that an individual's had as well. So what advice can you give to make sure we are sitting correctly when working on our PCs and to engage in core stability?
Sorry, one more time, Jake. Sorry, it was
no worries. What advice can you give to make sure we are sitting correctly when working at our PCs and to engage the core stability?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to engage your core all the time. You're just, it's natural humans. You're going to become disengaged there. So what I would counter it with is making sure your actual laptop system's set up correctly. So making sure your computer height or your keyboard height is correct. That will naturally put you in a better position. What I often see with people that will start developing really chronic postural problems is what they do in their daily life, right? So if you're on a laptop or a computer, it tends to be, if you don't have the correct setup, you're in this hunched up position. So we want to make sure that our keyboards are in line or just below the height of our hands here, if we've got the hands out in front there. That means that instantly your shoulders will sit in a better position here structurally. Okay, so making sure you get onto your bosses that you've got the correct kind of setup from that. The second part is actually making sure you're seated for massive prolonged periods of time, and that's a common one. Is folk go into this zone of I've got to just work away, I've got to get through this, right? Now, your brains are only going to be able to give you a good 45 minutes at a time of 100% output, right? And then we can start procrastinating, we start getting distracted and losing focus. I would say every 45 minutes to an hour, you're getting off your chair and you're just moving. As long as you're not in that seated position, the more that you're in that, back to the previous question, the more your hip flexors and your glutes are going to be under contraction, and that's how we're going to get those chronic pains, whether it's through shoulders or lower back.
Great, thank you, Grant. So we had a comment, and I just wanted to share this with you as well. When we opened up the Q&As, and they said they couldn't believe this. They taught Tai Chi for years and had excellent balance. Just a few years later, into their late 40s, a couple of bouts of vertigo, of frozen shoulder due to perimenopause, and they are wobbling like a newborn lamb. They just wanted to say their thanks for their very valuable session. Going to watch it a few times this week when they work from home to get strong again. And I just wondered if you had any comments on that, Grant, just in regards to that's.
It's really kind words. Appreciate that. I think a big thing I'm a big believer on is just building people's confidence again. I think when they lose it, and that is by creating understanding, and also understand that everyone's got the ability. If you've got the ability to move, you've got the ability to exercise, and your starting point is going to be always different from the person beside you or that you see, right? You've got to just focus on what you can do and find what your starting point is, because if you can do that and you're just settled and you're doing the basics, it's incredible the amount of progress that you can make in such a short period of time. So yeah, please keep it going.
Right, and there was then a follow-up question to that. They wondered if, Grant, you could show a couple of gentle neck stretches that you could do at work. Their neck is so locked up and can't seem to relieve the tension.
Yeah, sure. So neck tension is always directly going to be associated with your trapezius. So this big muscle group back here, which connects up through the neck. So the trapezius literally runs up through the base of the spine here. That is normally, again, caused from being in this kind of seated position a lot of times. So to actually just strengthen or lengthen the neck muscles here, I did this in the actual mobility video. So it's on, I think it's on available online. we did a lot of the mobility on the neck and the shoulders, but the really kind of quick one was actually just from that seated position. It's turning your head away, but imagine somebody's pulling on your arm. So you're actually you're trying to resist, and you're going to feel that stretch start from the shoulder and run all the way up the side of the neck there and pull. Once you've done that, you just hold it for 5 to 10 seconds and do a few reps of that each side. Once you've done that position, it's then just the rotation that we're doing, because even though my head and my neck are not moving, we're increasing the range of motion through your shoulders and your trapezius. So that will put it in more of a relaxed state, which will help your neck pain.
That's great. Thank you, Grant. There are a few comments as well about trying to access the other videos, and I will be doing that in the background to get the links sorted. Whilst I am checking for those links, another question we had, Grant, do you have any advice to relieve carpal tunnel?
Yeah. So impact muscles, right? So wrist pain, whether it's finger, wrist, or elbow pain, is always directly affected by your forearms. So your forearms are like your calves, and it's the first impact muscle of the upper body of your calves, and the first impact muscle of your lower body. However, they're really, really bad at telling you when they're tight. So you suddenly don't realize that. And obviously I need to know where it is specifically, but if it's your hands or your upper body that you're suffering from, you're going to want to look at how do we increase or improve the range of motion through the forearms first, so the extensor muscles. And then, because that's also associated with tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. So actually a lot of the kind of rotational exercises are great for carpal tunnel syndrome. Doing dry needling, if it's really bad on forearms, is phenomenal as well. So I've had a lot of success with folk doing dry needling on their forearms to decrease the contraction or the tension through the forearms and the wrists.
That's great. Thank you, Grant. Another question we've had, is it normal if we do stretch, but the range of motion is not between the left and the right? And if it's not, what do you suggest?
Yeah, of course. You'll have one side it's much more mobile than the other. That's totally normal. Train each side equally is the best advice I would give to you. You can spend, or if you're doing say 3 or 4 sets of one stretch of whatever you're doing, is make sure maybe you're doing an extra couple of sets on the side that's a little bit tighter. And remember, with stretching and mobility, you're increasing the range of motion within the joint and the muscle, but you will lose 99.9% of that 40 minutes later. The idea is that you increase the range of motion by doing mobility, and then you load that range of motion with resistance, whether that's body weight, by improving the actual muscular imbalances. So increasing the actual strength of the muscle, the weakened side, is how we're ultimately going to have a much more mobile and strong body.
That's great. Thank you, Grant. Just going to quickly, by the way, for those that have asked about the previous recordings, going to put the link to that in the chat now. Next question we had, Grant, then. I get sort of a burning feeling in one of their knees after a lot of sitting at the computer or traveling in the car. Do you have any advice on tackling that, and wondered if it's my IT band?
It can be. Burning sensation, yeah. Look, if you're really struggling, get to a good sports physio. Let them have a look at it for you. I don't want to give you advice without seeing you or being able to screen you. I certainly know from all the knee issues that I had a few years back. What I'd always, again, look around the knee, number one is, especially in the seated position, that will always indicate to me that you're tightening up behind the back of the knee, so into the hamstring and the calves. So if they're again over contracted for long periods of time, I would start looking at just how to stretch your hamstrings and your calves out a couple of times a day, and see if that helps improve the range of motion. But if you're getting into like chronic states of pain frequently, then I would certainly go straight off to, not a doctor's, I would go to a good sports physiotherapist first. We want to address the issue, and obviously doctors are great at that, but they'll be able, from an anatomical standpoint, a sports physio, to be able to know exactly what's going on within the actual joint itself.
Thank you, Grant. One final question we have got time for then. So, oh, yeah, go on, we'll squeeze two in. So first one, I injured my right foot digging up a large tree and pulled the tendons inside the foot, which still caused the individual pain. How can I help it and build up the strength and stability again?
Doing a lot of stability work, right? So pretty much a lot of your calf raises, so the foot itself. Try and not wear shoes as much as you can, especially around the house. Like let your feet love being not in shoes, right? Because a lot of times shoes obviously depending on the type of shoe, but they tend to obviously hold the foot in an artificial positioning. Whereas when we're actually wanting to strengthen the foot, we want to be able to spread the toes. And toe spreaders are phenomenal. I've seen a lot of folk that have struggled with tendon issues that they'll put toe spreaders in, and you can get specific ones for pain in the foot, and that will help obviously stretch through the arch of the foot. And so the plantar fascia, presumably that's where you've got the pain. Um, that if we can lengthen, and then working on plantar flexion and dorsiflexion, so going onto your toes. So even if you're standing in a position down, sorry, but even if you're if you want to stand on a slight elevation, so one foot's raised, and you can start with 2 feet, go onto your toes, and then take one foot off the floor and slowly lower the heel back down. Now, if you're on the elevation, the heel will go then into a negative position. If you can work repetitions of that, you're actively going to be strengthening the arches of your feet, and that will absolutely help. So,
That's brilliant. Thank you, Grant. And the final question is a personal one for yourself. Can you reassure us all that your kitchen floor isn't always that clean? Some people may feel a bit more insecure about their own floors.
Well, to be honest, I think what you can't see so particularly is the finer details of the floor, i.e. the dog hair, which I've got. So we'll just say it's the artificial lighting that's making it look a lot cleaner than it is.
Right. Thank you, Grant. And thank you all for your thoughtful questions and active participation.